Max Verstappen started from 5th on the grid, said the podium was impossible, and still made it happen. Red Bull risked everything with a reverse tire strategy, and it nearly delivered one of the greatest comebacks of the season. Verstappen ran 41 laps on mediums, then unleashed a furious charge on softs. What stopped him? A virtual safety car arriving just seconds before his attack on Leclerc for second place. From 5th on the grid, the world champion looked oddly calm. He knew his car wasn't the fastest on Saturday. Red Bull had struggled for grip all weekend, losing crucial downforce in the thin air. But that didn't matter. Verstappen had something the others didn't: clarity. His engineers had gambled on a counter-strategy, starting him on the harder medium tires while the front-runners Norris, Leclerc, and Hamilton opted for softs. It was bold, risky, unconventional, and exactly the kind of race Verstappen thrives in. He wasn't planning to win the start. He was planning to win the race. When the lights went out, the world slowed to fractions of a second. Four cars surged forward, side by side, towards the endless drag down to turn 1. Norris lunged left, Leclerc defended the inside, Hamilton squeezed the middle, and Verstappen, with perfect reaction and precision, slipped through the chaos like a knife through water. Dust exploded, grass flew, tires screamed, but somehow, he kept it straight. No panic, no mistakes, just reflexes honed by years of driving on the edge of physics. When the smoke cleared, Verstappen was in 4th. He'd survived the storm. The rest of the race was his to shape. From that moment on, Verstappen didn't drive like a man chasing positions, he drove like a strategist executing a plan. He knew the front three had overcommit to pace. Their soft tires were blistering in the heat, while his mediums were coming alive. "We're not racing them now," his engineer Gianpiero Lambiase told him on the radio. "We'll get them later." Verstappen's reply was short, calm, and precise: copy. Long game. Those two words summed up everything about his approach in 2025: no impulsiveness, no wasted aggression. Just patience, calculation, and total control. For the first 5 laps in Mexico, Max Verstappen was studying the race like a mathematician studying a moving equation. The Red Bull RB21, trimmed for top speed, was a rocket on the straights but a handful through the low-speed corners of the stadium section. He wasn't chasing positions yet, he was observing. The telemetry confirmed it later: Verstappen's throttle application was smoother than anyone's, his brake pressure consistent to the millisecond. He was sculpting the pace, managing the airflow through the tires, and waiting for the others to make the first mistake. His engineer Gianpiero Lambiase reminded him, "We're in it for the long game." Verstappen's quiet reply, "I know," said everything. Calm. Controlled. Certain. Then came lap 6. The moment the race changed. Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari had drifted slightly offline into turn 1, defending the inside from the charging Red Bull. Verstappen saw the gap, a fleeting opening barely wider than a car's width, and went for it. It wasn't reckless, it was precise. He braked a fraction later, trusted the grip, and placed the car perfectly alongside. For a heartbeat, it looked like both would make it through cleanly. But the margin for error was microscopic. The two touched wheels just enough to send dust flying, just enough to make the crowd gasp. Hamilton skipped over the grass, Verstappen straightened the steering and carried on, momentum intact. It wasn't luck. It was instinct refined through repetition, the signature of a driver who has turned chaos into calculation. The stewards noted the incident immediately, but Verstappen didn't care. He'd made his move, survived, and advanced. From his cockpit, the view was pure focus: Hamilton behind him, Leclerc ahead, and the race finally in his control. For him, that duel was more than just a position gained, it was psychological warfare. Every driver on the grid knows that when Verstappen commits, there's no hesitation, no half measure. It's total conviction. That's why rivals fear him, not for his aggression, but for his certainty. He doesn't improvise, he executes. And in Mexico, he executed perfectly. Afterward, Hamilton would call the penalty ridiculous, but Verstappen said nothing. He didn't have to. His radio was silent, his lap times spoke louder. He wasn't gloating, he was calculating. The contact had cost him less than 1/10 of a second. From lap 7 onward, his rhythm never broke. In fact, it improved. The telemetry showed that he was carrying 2 km/h more exit speed through turn 3 and managing the rear tires better than before. It was almost as if the adrenaline sharpened him. "He doesn't get angry in battle," said Red Bull strategist Hannah Schmitz afterward. "He gets faster." The irony of the moment was that while Hamilton argued over the penalty, Verstappen was already thinking about tires and strategy. He knew the mediums would only work if he could keep the surface temperature below 100 degrees, and the thin Mexican air made that a nightmare. So he adjusted. He began lifting early into turns 4 and 5, coasting slightly, letting the car roll to reduce energy buildup. The data later confirmed that this technique reduced his degradation rate by nearly 30%. That's not just driving, that's engineering behind the wheel. Verstappen wasn't reacting to the race. He was designing it. When the dust settled after the opening skirmishes, Max Verstappen's race entered a different phase, not chaos, but control. Red Bull's decision to start him on medium tires had been risky, even controversial. At over 2,000 meters of altitude, Mexico's thin air heats the tires faster and cools the brakes slower, turning strategy into guesswork. But where others feared the unknown, Verstappen saw opportunity. "If we can stretch this stint, we win the race in the second half," he told his race engineer, Gian Piero Lambiase, before lights out. That wasn't optimism, it was calculation. Every lap he drove afterward proved that he understood the limits of the RB21 better than anyone else on the planet. From lap 12 onward, the race became a test of discipline. Verstappen's medium tires were already 20 degrees hotter than the ideal operating window, but he never panicked. Instead, he adjusted his style. In turns 4 and 5, he began easing off earlier, letting the car rotate naturally instead of forcing the front end. He was using lift and coast, an advanced fuel and brake management technique, not to save energy, but to control tire surface temperature. The telemetry later revealed that his inputs were smoother than any other driver's. Every brake trace looked identical, every throttle lift perfectly timed. That's what makes Verstappen different. He doesn't fight the car, he teaches it how to last. The magic of Verstappen's long stints lies in what can't be seen: his ability to sense grip levels that even the sensors struggle to define. When the mediums began to grain around lap 25, his pace barely dropped. While Norris and Leclerc struggled with overheating and degradation, Verstappen kept his lap times within a 0.2 window for more than 20 consecutive laps. His rhythm was surgical. "He's building a race in real time," said Christian Horner after the race. "Every lap, every decision, it's like he's writing the blueprint as he goes." Red Bull's simulations had predicted a 40-lap maximum for the mediums. Verstappen stretched them to 41 not by magic, but by mastery. Then came the turning point. Lap 41. Verstappen dove into the pits for soft tires, and Red Bull's strategy unfolded exactly as planned. The stop was flawless, 2.1 seconds, and when he rejoined, he was fifth, but now armed with speed the others couldn't match. On fresh rubber, with half the field on worn hards or old mediums, the Dutchman unleashed a controlled fury. His first lap out of the pits was nearly 2 seconds faster than the race leaders. By lap 50, he was the fastest man on track by a full margin, gaining 1.4 seconds per lap on Leclerc ahead. It wasn't aggression, it was inevitability. His car placement was perfect, his lines exact. It was the kind of driving that feels choreographed, but it isn't. Its intuition at 200 miles per hour. What makes Verstappen's control so impressive isn't just his pace, it's how efficiently he uses the car's systems. During that second stint, Red Bull's engineers noticed that he was deploying battery energy in a pattern that didn't match their preset modes. He wasn't just pressing buttons, he was manually managing power delivery corner by corner to optimize acceleration without overheating the tires. "He knows the car like an engineer," said one Red Bull technician. "He changes the balance with his fingers. No one else in the field does that." Even as he hunted down Leclerc, Verstappen stayed calm, never once locking up, never once overheating the brakes. It was the kind of composure that defines champions, knowing exactly how much you can take from the car without asking for too much. By lap 60, it became clear that the strategy had worked to perfection. The crowd could sense it, the roar in the stadium section growing louder with every Red Bull glimpse. Verstappen was just 4 seconds behind Leclerc, and the gap was shrinking fast. The RB21 looked like it had been reborn, gliding through corners that had punished everyone else. And yet, inside the cockpit, Verstappen was quiet. No celebration, no distraction. Only rhythm. That's what separates him from the rest, his ability to treat genius like routine. While others see risk, Verstappen sees probability. While others chase the moment, he builds it. In Mexico, he wasn't just driving the RB21, he was proving that even when the car isn't the fastest, the mind inside it still is.